Hi, everyone. It's Joel Baum here, Senior Director for Professional Development at Gender Spectrum. And over the next several weeks, we'll be featuring a number of videos with educational leaders who have taken the steps necessary to create gender inclusive spaces for their students. In some cases, it will be leaders who have supported transgender students. In other cases, it will be leaders that have worked to create more general inclusive conditions. But what we want to do is present to you what it looks like for a school to take the concrete steps in order to establish a welcoming environment in which all students feel seen, safe, and supported.
I'm Pam Retzlaff, and I'm currently serving as the principal of a middle school in Webster Groves School District, Webster Groves, Missouri. My experience working with transgender students and other diverse students basically is through the principalship. I was an elementary school principal for 18 years, retired, and then came back and took this middle school principalship. In both of those experiences, I had a wonderful, diverse population of students, but those that were beginning to identify themselves as transgender, because you can imagine how things change in 18 years of education. And the youngsters were strong enough and had enough support from their families where they would start to share their identities in second and third grade, which was a brand new phenomenon to me. And that was about 4 or 5 years ago when we started to make accommodations so the children in my school would feel comfortable with who they were and what they could do in our building. And I embraced it because I love those children. I love all children, but those children in particular because I knew they were having so many struggles. For example, where do you go to the bathroom? Where do you change into your gym clothes? What friends do you have overnight? You know, those kind of struggles that we really don't think about in our little people's world. It did happen, and we did have to think about it. So that's kind of wraps it up. And I was very fortunate to have the experiences at the elementary school, because when I came to the middle school, one of the first letters I got was, "Dear principal, this is the year my son has decided to come back to school as a boy." And then I was introduced to him, you know, and that kind of thing. And I'm like, I can do this. I know how to do this already. Some of the issues that you have to address is certainly the bathroom use. There's always a little bit of fear. And I think it's from the transgender child and the general population, and then again with their parents about same sex using the same bathroom or a different sex using a different bathroom, those kind of things, which are ridiculous, but yet they're out there and you have to take it on and embrace the problem and take care of it. So that was one of the first things that we had to work out. And even at the middle school, we had to work that out so that he was comfortable in both those cases and that everybody else is comfortable with what was happening. And at the middle school, I also have a locker room. We have to address that in the locker room also. So those kind of things were there. And then there are the friends, the bullying, those that are not friends. I know for a fact that my little guy, kids would get right in his face and say, "Are you a boy or a girl?" And him having to defend himself was difficult. Then there's the community, the whole backlash from the community. I was probably approached daily by at least a half a dozen parents when this first came out in our school. Eventually it went away, and it went away entirely. And I have to admit that in the middle school, there's no conversation at all, which is a miracle, really, you know. But back then, 5 years ago, it was brand new. And everybody wanted to know what was going on. And many people did not want to be educated. They did not want to know what was going on. No matter what, even if they knew this family that was going through this and helping to support their son, they just didn't want to be involved. They kind of took a blind eye to it. So I think those are the big things. To be able to address the concerns of the families and the community, it took quite a bit of thought, but a lot of discussion with the family of the transgender child, what their expectations were for their son and how we could meet his needs. We fully expected him to be able to use the boys' bathroom if he wanted to. We also had bathrooms, and I guess we were fortunate to have these. They were single-use bathrooms close to our library. And he was welcome to use those, and he did when he wanted to. So he had the choice. Anybody else could have that choice too. It wasn't just for him. And he knew that. It was his choice. If he felt uncomfortable for whatever reason, he could go in that bathroom. So, you know, when you deal with that kind of thing, you have to look for what are the options and how do we keep it fair for everybody. And that was my big thing, is to keep things fair for him. The backlash I got was, how dare you expose my son to that, my daughter to that kind of thing, which I think we hear that out in the world, even, you know, on the news. And they, of course, go to the extreme right away of what's going to happen in these bathrooms with, you know, males as girls or girls as whatever. You know, all those different stories and scenarios that they put out there. And you have to just keep talking about, nothing's going to happen to your son. Nothing's going to happen to your son. He's interested in using the toilet. That's it. Not looking at anybody's genitals, not doing anything else in the bathroom. It's just using the toilet. But I did have some very negative parents and keep him away from my child and so forth. And I think it was a difficult thing to get through, because I love all children and I didn't want to see anybody hurt. And I knew he was being hurt. But yet I would ask him, how are you doing? And he would say, great. Now, if I asked him that a year before that, he wouldn't say great, because he was having all kinds of struggles. He didn't know what to wear to school. He'd be holding his urine all day long. You know, there were all those kind of issues that were far worse than just having a little concern from somebody about the bathroom. And he knew I was in his court, so he would be safe. And I think that was the biggest thing. Then the next thing we really worked on was educating the staff. And the staff ran from like 25 years old to 65 years old. You know, talk about a complex unit of people with all different backgrounds. And you can imagine that anybody over the age of 40 was just shutting the door. This is silly. This is ridiculous. Why is parents letting them do this? That kind of thing. So we had to do a lot of professional development, teaching them about gender in general in the United States and as it compares to across the world, and then what it means to be transgender and how we can support the student, because that was my mandate from above, if you want to put it that way. But you will treat him with respect and with care and take care of his needs, whatever they are. You won't anyway put him down. And it can happen, even in the adult world, it can happen. So you have to set those expectations very high for the people in your building. This is nothing nobody asked for. It just is. So we make sure we take care of them and let them be the person that they are. Yeah, the impact of what it was before and then after he actually came out as a transgender person, it was huge. But I knew him from the time he was a little baby. I mean, 4 years old to me is a baby. And, you know, when they would come around the playground and play, and, you know, our families are a very close community. So we knew him before he even came. And he's a twin, and he has a sister. So I had two little girls that were enrolled in kindergarten, and they were polar opposites. And along the way, you look at him and wonder, well, he was still in his little girl dresses, but he kept changing out of them. And even his mom would make comments like, he wouldn't wear what I wanted him to wear, or her to wear what I wanted her to wear for picture day. And he came in coveralls a lot. And he would insist that his hair would be short. And of course, his sister had longer hair and would always be wearing ponytails and so forth. And so when I got a call from the mother the summer before he went into third grade, and she said, this is the year. He's going to come back to school as a boy. He's always been a boy. And it took us a while to recognize that, but he knew he was a boy, and he kept showing us he was a boy. And we just didn't catch on until these last few months. And now we recognize it and we understand, and he's coming back as a boy. And then I, on the other side, I'm like, aha, I get it. Now I get it. I always thought there was something, but I really didn't know what. And, of course, you appreciate every child's uniqueness. And so I just thought it's a different path, but I never thought that he was transgender. It just never crossed my mind. So when he came back, he had a butch haircut, very handsome young man, of course, very comfortable in jeans and a t-shirt or a regular shirt or whatever, a dress shirt kind of thing, very proud of himself. And you could see it in the way he walked and the way he talked and his manners and so forth. He was so comfortable in his skin. He knew he was in the right place. And so we could all see that then as the adults that surround his world. And we knew he was in the right place too. So it made it easier for us. Here's this youngster teaching us all this huge lesson about identifying with who he really was. How other children supported him or even responded to him was all over the place, really. You have your boys that are very, very boyish, very athletic, raised by macho men, and they cannot even think that anything like this is possible. So then to put them on a team with the boys and so forth, it was just way, way out of their realm. So that took some time. It definitely took some time. But I know for a fact that his classmates also were somewhat relieved because they knew too, something's not right. And some of those meaner kids that would get in his face in previous years and say, are you a boy or a girl, realized that their questioning was accurate and that he was searching for what he was. And he was a boy and he was trying to figure out how to get there because the world was labeling him as a girl. So then when he came back as a boy, they all got it. And he still had a lot of great relationships with the females because that's what he had for all these years till he was in third grade. And he gradually started to get male friends. And in third grade, that's kind of a transition time for kids. They start to really identify with, gender and groups of friends and what they do and going out, and they start to notice boy-girl stuff. And so that was a little bit difficult there, but he was accepted by boys in the class. Not all of them, but he was accepted. And that's the one thing I kept watching for. When is he going to have a buddy? That's what I just kept watching. When is he going to get a buddy? And he got a buddy. And he has more buddies. And now he's got male and female friends. He still plays a lot of sports, male and female. So he can play on all different teams. He's quick as a whip on the soccer field, So it was interesting to watch how it all developed. My stance with individuals that were not supportive or even to the bullying piece was pretty strong in that it was not going to be tolerated. This young man is a young man, and that's how he'll be treated. And you will not be able to call him names. You will be disciplined as our guidelines in our district show you will be. If you bully somebody, you cannot be allowed to do that. And that got out pretty quick. I wasn't going to tolerate it. I wasn't going to allow him to be a victim anywhere on our campus. Then the parent piece was a little more difficult. Like I said, many of them will just shut the door. They don't want to know about it. And one mother, I remember her very clearly, really just kept hammering away at me, almost a daily phone call. I think she was trying to wear me down. and so she said, at one point I said to her, would you like to talk to the family? I thought that would help because she thought her son was at risk because this transgender boy was now invading her son's bathroom space and gym space or whatever. And so I said, would you like to talk to the family? I know they would talk to you. I know they would help you understand what their son is going through and how we can support him. And she says, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to learn a thing about it. I don't want to know a thing about it. And I had to kind of break her a little bit. And I said, can you imagine, if she had 3 sons, if one of your sons came home and told you he was transgender, that he was in the wrong body, how would you react to that? And then she finally backed off a little bit and she said, I can't imagine what that family is going through. And she didn't call me again. And I was very happy. But, you know, I just had to hit her where it really was. I know that that family didn't ask for it either. They had 2 beautiful twin girls. And that's what they thought. And then they didn't. And they didn't ask for that. And they didn't ask for all the turmoil and everything that they would have to do to help their son. But you do what you do because you love your children. And I think that's when that mother finally woke up and realized that her son was not going to be hurt by this boy. He would still be male. But so was the other boy. He's male too. He's just a little different than yours. And you have to accept that and be grateful for what you've been given in this life. The advice I have for other educators on this subject is teach yourself as much as possible. Find the resources out there. Find other people who've had those experiences. I have spoke to other principals in the same situation across the St. Louis County. I have gone to meetings of parents of transgender children so that I can understand their perspective and what their needs are and what support they need. You have to keep educating yourself. I think you remember that we even had a conference with you, your organization, with my staff, and allowed some questioning, which you were wonderful about, letting them just ask anything. It was, you know, free reign on what's on your mind, so they could get those thoughts out of their head because it is so new to everybody. So I think really as much as you can. And then I had a very good friend whose partner was more involved in the transgender community of a support system. And I went to lunch with him and I just said, tell me everything you know. What do I need to know? So you need to find those people out there that can support you and give you the information that you know so that you are strong and you have accurate information and you can protect the rights of all the children, but in particular the child who's going through a transgender change that he doesn't know where to go or how to find those resources or how to find a safe place or how to find help. So you have to be even more aware of what that child needs. Right. The hubbub when you have a child who's transgender come to school and say they are the gender of what they're supposed to be is enormous. And it's because people just don't know and they're afraid. And they're always the fear of the unknown, that'll just, you know, take over and it'll create a life of its own. And so whenever I got all those phone calls, which was lots, and emails, which was lots, I would say between emails and phone calls, it was about a dozen a day. And that went on for the whole first month when this young man came back to school. The stories were horrendous. You know, I heard you had this boy entering the bathroom and he's not even a boy and all this. I mean, it was craziness. And so you just had to keep putting it out, almost like one fire at a time. And then answering their questions, but being honest with them, offering them information, offering them the same kind of education that I was going through. It's out there for everybody. And then eventually they started to learn it's not going to change. This boy will still be a boy, no matter what you say. You know, and how many times you complain or send her an email, he's still going to be a boy. And so they eventually backed off. And it would just disappear. And of course, it's just part of my responsibility. And if they feel, as a parent, and you have a non-transgender child, that your child's at risk for whatever reason is in your head, the questions have to be answered, and you have to be put at ease that everybody's safe. And that really was my bottom line, and made it through it. And seriously, by the end of the year, there were no phone calls, none. The following year, he changed his name. Which caused a little confusion, but then of course they think, now you have 2? You know? I probably have far more than that. They just haven't told me yet.
Hi, Carlos here. To keep the conversation going, make sure you join the Gender Spectrum Lounge at genderspectrum.org/lounge. We hope to see you there.